Hi, so I'm sure you're already familiar with our entire Fondtastic Fondant range, and it comes in a whole range of amazing colours. But today we're actually here to talk about the Fondtastic Fondant Mat. The Fondtastic Fondant Mats come in two sizes. We have the regular, and they come in a tube so you can actually store it back up again. And this is the large, and we're going to be using the large one today. Now, as you'll notice as I'm flipping it over, this is a 2-mat system. Very, very different to a lot of the ones that are on the market. But this one's the large one, and we're going to play with this one today. There's probably a lot of questions out there as to why do I need a fondant mat? So there's a lot of reason to actually use it. The first one is it just makes it so much easier when you're rolling out your fondant, and you don't need to use things like icing sugar and corn flour because the mat actually helps you spread the fondant out and keep it so it doesn't dry out. So you're avoiding things like elephant skinning, tearing. You're also getting more even layer. But another beauty of it, the fact that you're actually sealing it in between two of the sheets means that it can stay there for longer. So while you're doing other bits and pieces, especially for you who are working at home, you can leave it within the two sheets, walk away, do other things and come back, and it will still be in pristine condition, ready for you to use. And that is so important to note. Now, what else does this mat actually have? We're going to go through all of those details as well. Starting at the bottom corner, we can actually see we have a little professional quality because this is food grade and it's really important to note. And here on the mat, they've given us a whole heap of really handy information. So I don't know about you, but I sometimes wonder how much fondant do I really need to cover certain size cakes? And the beauty of this is not only does it come in the 6, 8, 10 and all the other size inch cakes, but it also has it in the centimetre or rather the millimetre size. So for those of you who use the inches and those who use the centimetres and millimetres, you'll have that information very handy for you. And it also has square cakes and round cakes. So you can see here on the side, just as an example, if you were doing a 6-inch square cake, you would roll it out to 15 inches on the mat, and we'll go through that in a second as to how that actually works. And you'll need approximately, depending on the height of your cake, whether you're doing a 3-inch cake or a 4-inch cake, how handy is that? You need 520 grams, or, I'm trying to read that one, 690 grams if you were doing a 4-inch high cake based on a 6-inch square. And now we're working on the middle section of the actual mat itself. So if I were to peel back one of the layers, you'll see this little lemon shape here, and it's really, really important because it'll take you through whether you're doing a square cake or a round cake. And when I overlay the second sheet, you can see, once I get it down nice and smooth, it has all the sizing on there. So I can go again, 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, or if you want to go centimetres, we've got 15, 20 and 25 centimetre. And the beauty of it is that you have the round shapes, and then you have the square shapes. So remember what we talked about before in terms of sizing. If you were doing a 6-inch cake and it were, for example, 3 centimeters high, I would roll out, and this is being in a square, I have to roll it out to 15 inches. So that would be around about here. So if I roll out my fondant to about this size, I would have the right amount of fondant to cover my cake in one go without having to think about have I gone too little or too much. It already measures it all out, and it gives you all the measurements you need to get it right the first time round. And the final handy feature that this mat has is the Fondtastic logo up here, and you're thinking, what's so special about it? Well, it's on one side, but it's also on the other, which means when you're working with it, if you keep an eye on it and make sure that the two are matching and they're lined up, you'll know that your entire mat is actually lined up. So even if you were to roll it up separately, or for some reason the two mats became separated, you know which way they'd go, and you've got it easily ready to go each and every time. I'm going to roll up this little mat and get it out of the way so we can get on to the next part. And we're going to talk about the fondant a little bit. So we're creating a 3-tier cake at the moment, and the bottom tier and the top tier are going to be plain black, but the middle tier is going to have an interesting feature. We're going to do a bit of a marble effect. Now, to cover the cakes, it's all exactly the same process, but probably the most interesting thing today is doing the marbling. So I'm going to take you through how to do that, and then you can do the black one on your own because you already know how to cover a cake. So let's get started on there. So we'll just bring across these two fondants. Fondant comes in this size tub. Once you actually take it out, we have this snazzy little opener, so you don't have to fight to get your fondant out. Some of them are wrapped up really hard, but these ones are not. And coming straight out, we've got no little manky bits that quite often happen with fondant. This one is a beautiful, ready to go. And the beauty of it is it's already pliable, but it's important that you give it a nice little knead to bring it all together. And probably all up, you're maybe only kneading for about a minute or two. Now everybody has a different technique. I tend to use my left hand, and then if I get tired I use the right, but that doesn't seem to happen with this fondant. And I'm just going slowly. Probably if I'm working at home I'll be a little bit faster, but I wanted you to see how the fondant is actually coming together as I'm giving it a nice slow knead. And I've got to tell you, the perfume coming off the fondant is fantastic. And it is ready to go. So it's all come together, it's beautiful and smooth. Has a great perfume coming off it. Tell you what, being a caker is hard because everything smells so good. Now, because the cake that we're covering is going to be a 7-inch and it's approximately 5 inches high by now, I'm going to need a little bit more fondant than this one. And I did weigh it out because I used the fondant mat to actually help me. I'm going to open up a second tub and we're going to work on doing marbling, but in a bit of a grey, maybe concrete look with a little bit of black through it. So I'll pop this one back in the bag because it's really important that you don't leave your fondant out, especially if you're in a humid area, it's going to get sticky. And if you've got the aircon running, it's going to dry out and you're going to get elephant skinning. Now, the beauty of Fondtastic is you have a longer time to work with it than most other brands. And plus, you're going to use your fondant mat shortly, so that's really going to eliminate that problem. So this one's going back into the bag, just like this. In the meantime, I'll crack open a second tub, but I'm also going to open up the black. And grab a little bit out. Now, because I'm doing marbling and we all know that black is a really, really strong color, we don't want to use a lot of it. But what I want to do for the marbling is I want to break it down into maybe 4, even 5 different batches of shades of gray. And I don't need a lot, probably for the entire cake, maybe about this much. We'll see how it goes as I start to mix up the colors. All right, so I have kneaded up 2 lots of the fondant and I've got the black one here ready to go. So what I want to do is actually break these up into a couple little batches. So I'll probably take maybe 2/3 of this one here, and I'm going to add in a small amount of black, probably not even a lot, and that's about how much I want. It's not even a 20-cent piece worth. Grab off a little bit of fondant, give it a little bit of knead so I'm breaking down that black. And you can see the color coming straight through, and I can already see it's probably going to be stronger than what I want. So I might even just take half of that for the time being. And I'm going to knead this one in. That's probably really great. So when I compare it now to the other one, you can already see the difference between the two. So the next batch, this one was a little bit smaller. I might add maybe a tad more. This is really going by feel and by look. So there's no hard and fast rule for it. And sometimes we see marbled cakes online and we think, oh, I want to do exactly that one. No 2 marbling is ever going to come out the same. Instead, this one's come out just a tad lighter, so we might just keep those 2 together. A bit more. Now I want 2 small bits of a little bit darker, so I'll grab off maybe not even a quarter. That should do us. Again, we're pinching off those 20-cent pieces, but this one's going to be a fair bit darker. This one I'm going to add in probably a little bit more, just to give it a bit more of a contrast. You can already see between them all the marbling that's coming through. So there we have probably 3 shades, 4 shades. So for the last little bit, remember that last little bit of white we've got left over, this one's going to be the tiniest amount. 5-cent piece into the white, and that will be it for, put this black away as well. Always remember to put your fondant away so it doesn't dry out. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Now, there's lots of different ways of marbling and everybody does it differently. My method of doing it is I like to break them up into little balls, roll them all up and then roll them out. And it gives me a really great swirl of color through it. Some people like to roll each one into a sausage, roll them up, twist them, and I do a bit of that, but it's a bit more fun. So I'll start by showing you what I like to do. So I've got 1 ball. I'm gonna roll that into a little bit of a sausage. Next one, You can see already the colours coming through. And you'll see in a moment why I wanted these ones a bit smaller. There's a method to my madness. You can see that I'm trying to keep the sizes about the same. So I'll probably go down a little bit. Now this one, I'm going to break it up again into 3, but I'm going to make them the same length. Look at that coming through, beautiful. There we go. Trying to work as quickly as possible. And this last one here, which belonged to there. So now what we have is the lighter colours, some of the medium colours and the darker colours. Now I want to layer them together, so I'm going to grab one of these ones and chop that on. I'm going to add another one of the medium. I might add a dark one into here, just like so. So I'm kind of layering them up this way, because as I mix them through, I want to see those colours coming through, just about giving them that nice marble effect. Now the reason I'm pressing down is because I'm making sure that they're blending together, so I haven't got too many lines happening. And you're just going by eye. I have to use that term all the time, schmoozing together. I could probably pop this one. Actually, no, I'll go a darker one here. Blend it all in, using the palm of your hand. All right, so we've got it now to the point where it's kind of all schmoozed together. I just love that phrase today, schmoozing, schmoozing. And if I were to flip this over, you'll start to see on the other side, it's starting to marble a bit more. Now, what I want to do, and this is the part that everyone goes, oh, how did you do that? I'm going to roll this up together now, slowly but surely. You're probably thinking, oh no, but they're lines. No, there's a whole reason for me doing this. Okay, so got it. Give it a bit of a knead. Not too much, because I don't want them going too far together. All right. A lot of work to do this. Nobody goes to the gym when you're a cake person. You don't need to. You see that beautiful marble effect starting to come through? Doesn't it look amazing? You ready for something different? Grab a knife, a nice little sharp one, and start cutting it down. You see that marble effect coming through there? Wait till I paste them all together. Give that a little bit of a squash and keep on cutting. You can start to see that I'm building it up. And this will give you some of the most unusual marble effects that you'll ever get, especially when we're going to roll it out shortly with the fondant mat. Now, one of the beautiful features of Fondtastic Fondant is that you can blend even after I've chopped up the fondant. The two of them will join back together again without the lines in between, which you can't do that with a lot of other brands. It's just pushing it all together and making sure that the lines are all joining so it's not going to be disjointed. And I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing again. So let's turn that over. Start to see the effect. And then when I roll it out, all of those colours are going to come out. And you'll get that amazing marbling effect. I'm also looking to keep it a little bit round. I was a bit rough with it initially. So I'm quite happy with the way that's looking at the moment. And I've pushed that all together. So now it's time to bring that fondant mat in. Now remember, we're going to be doing a 7-inch cake. Pop this little one right in the middle. Bring that down a little bit. Shimmy that down a little bit, as they say. And then pop the fondant mat over the top. Line these two up. Now, we're working on a 7-inch cake, right? So we're going to go down here and we're working on a round one. So we've got a 6 and an 8. So I'm just going to do an 8 just for the fun of it. And we've probably got a little bit over on the fondant, but that's all right. It's saying here for that size cake, I need to be rolling out to approximately 17 inch. So I need to be getting to around about this line here. Given the amount of fondant that I've got here underneath the mat, that's not going to be a problem. So let's get crack-a-lackin' and do some rolling. And we're just going to roll out slowly but surely, a little bit at a time. Now, if you were working on this fondant without the mat, at this point in time, how much I've actually pushed it out, I would have to lift up the fondant and actually turn it. But instead, in this particular case, I can just grab the mat. Look at this. How good is that? That is such a game changer for me. And I can keep on rolling. So we've had a good workout and we've rolled all the fondant out and we've gone a little bit past the 18-inch, which is fine. Now, if you're going to ask the question as to how thick I've actually rolled it out, it's just about 1/2 centimetre. And the beauty of this is, because it's marble effect, we've got this beautiful effect here on this side, but we want to have a look what's on the other side. So if you were hand rolling this out just generally on the bench without the mat, it'll be really hard for you to flip it over, and you run the risk of actually tearing or stretching the fondant in certain areas, so it's no longer a nice even roll. So now we've had a look at this side and I think it looks pretty good. Let's have a look at the other side and then decide which side we actually want on the cake. So this looks amazing as well, and I love some of the little lines that have come through it, but I've got to be honest with you, I think I like the other side better. So that will be the outside of the cake and this will be the inside. So yet again, I can flip it over and I'm not going to stretch the fondant. Ta-da! Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go grab that cake that we had in the fridge, and this one we're going to leave it aside just as is. Anybody who works with fondant will know you're not supposed to leave your fondant out once you've actually rolled it out, but in this particular case you can. And we've even gone so far as I rolled out fondant once and forgot about it overnight, came back in the morning and it was still perfect and I covered my cake. So we've got the cake and it's out of the fridge and it's chilled right down, so it's really nice and firm now. You can actually feel it. Now, some people like to cover their cake at room temperature. I prefer that the cake is cold, only because I do work the cake quite quickly. Because it's come cold from the fridge, it's dry, so to speak. And there's nothing to actually adhere the fondant to the cake. So what I've done is, and anyone, you can do this at home, just a little bit of water in a spray bottle, or you could put a little bit of sugar glue over the cake. Some people like to use piping gel, the choice is particularly yours. I like even the sugar glue, which I think works incredibly well, but for today we're just using the water. Now let's do that quick test. Yep, I'm just gonna put a little bit on the outside. I don't want it too wet. Now, if I had gloves on, I'd even go and massage it all in and make sure that it was all covered. But in this particular case, I think we're quite happy with that. Now, if you remember, we had over here our fondant mat ready to go, and we've decided that this is going to be the outside of it. So what we need to do now is flip it over, peel off the back of the mat, lift up the mat, and pop it into place. There we go. Give it a little bit of a smooth out on top. Make sure it's into place, and then I'm happy with it, and I can start to slowly but surely lift off the mat. And peel it off. Now I have a beautiful marble cake ready to just cover. Give it a little bit of a smooth on top, and then start working the fondant down the cake. And I like to use this side of my hand. I'm pulling like the skirt of the cake out at the time. And constantly smoothing, constantly working it. Beautiful marble effect, isn't it? Just being careful, I'm not going to pull the edges off the side of the cake. So I've managed to smooth it all down. You see, I probably did have a little bit too much fondant, but it's all good. And just with a sharp knife or a blade, give it a little bit of a trim around so we'll take off the excess. I won't waste this, so I'm going to use some of it for later. And I'm not going to mix it or knead it because I actually want to keep more of that detail in there. And we have a few little fun tools here. We have smoothers, and another firm favourite are my Sharpies. Now the idea here is that I'm going to use this to smooth the cake and this one to try and get my sharp edge on the cake. Bit of smooth. I'll try and work this way for you. We'll go left-handed because I'm ambidextrous. There's a fun fact. You can see I've got a couple little folds in there, but because this is a marble cake, it hides a multitude of sins. With that sharp knife again, I'm just going to trim the edge around. Give it a little bit of a snip, whip that off. This is somewhat satisfying, isn't it? It has a bit of sugar glue underneath. There we go. Remember that little Sharpie that I talked about? At this point in time, what I'd like to do is pop the smoother on the top and a little Sharpie underneath. And I want to be pushing a little bit of the Sharpie against the top. Now the idea is that I'm not pushing too far in, because or else I'll push the top edge of the cake out. I just want to go around slowly but surely, and this is actually quite a slow process, and sometimes it might take you 10 minutes and sometimes it might take you half an hour. Always keeping your fondant just, your smoother just a little bit off the lip, and the idea is that it ends up forming like a little sharp corner on the top. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I can either use a smoother here on the top with a little Sharpie, or if you're lucky enough to have two smoothers, I'm just going to bring that smoother just off the edge. You can see I've probably got about an inch or two off the edge, and bring the second smoother underneath, and I just run it around. Because what I want to do, and I'm being very gentle, the force of my hand is actually incredibly soft because I don't want to push the cake down and I don't want to push the cake in. So it's like a nice smooth motion, and I'm trying to create a little bit of a sharp edge. So the whole idea is that the two edges are coming together. But by me keeping this top section on here and this bottom one coming up, I can actually get these two corners to meet in between, so I get more of a sharp edge happening on there. The alternative is to use the little Sharpies, which these are like a favorite thing of mine. Again, with your smoother just off the edge, your Sharpie around the corner, you can smooth around. You can see that little motion that I'm doing with the little zhuzh, zhuzh, zhuzh again. Always zhuzhing here, aren't we? You can work that corner in, but I'm being careful that I'm not pushing the cake too far in. And I'll keep on going until I'm happy. Sometimes it happens in a few minutes, and sometimes it might take 20 minutes to get the nice sharp edge. Always making sure that you're keeping that top edge smooth, so you can see it's still nice and flat on top. I haven't gone off on an angle at all, but I'm starting to get that little sharp edge happening around the edge of the cake. So this almost looks like a slab of marble. There you have it, we've finished off the marbling, and you can go ahead at home and then cover the other two tiers of the cake just in plain black. It doesn't have to be as fussy as all the marbling that we did. I did show you a bit of a challenging technique with the marbling. You can always roll it and do it the way that you normally do it, but the reason I do it this way is because I love all the detail that you get through it, and later on some of the other details we're going to add on will make it look even better. So I'll see you soon.